Now in this particular example, we're going to do some photo retouching from a series of bracketed photos that we've merged into HDR Pro using 3 exposures. And so opening this up, on the right we have all of our controls, and I'm just doing a preset that's set to custom. Once you start editing things, it automatically becomes a custom preset. So since it came in very sort of kind of muddy to some degree, and that happens a lot when you're using different exposures. When it brings it in, it doesn't exactly know how to solve it, so it just kind of pushes them together, and you could sort of use a preset to get a good base to start off with, and then start doing your color corrections and your exposure corrections and your gamma and detail and whatnot. And so I'm using curves here to sort of equalize this image visually so it's not so crazy. So I just want like a nice base to start out with, and to get it to a point where I can go in and use some other color correction on it. So zooming in here, I'm going to go through. I'm using the spot healing brush to go through and remove little bits of detail here and there, or not detail, but blemishes or just unwanted things that are in the photograph that you're trying to fix. Now, I'm not like a professional photo retoucher for beauty magazines or anything. This is just a project that I wanted to do. And just go through and remove things that are unwanted. And sometimes the healing brush or the spot healing brush can't solve things, so you just have to go in and use a brush and just paint some stuff. And then I'm going to duplicate the layer and do a surface blur. And a surface blur is good for skin, and it's kind of a technique that a lot of people use. And then I'm using it on a selection here just so it's a little bit easier on our CPU, and you could dial it in a little easier. And then I'm going to apply it to the whole layer, and then blend it in a little bit. Now I'm selecting the background because I'm going to create like a quick garbage mask to sort of color correct the background separately from our actual model here. Just go around, select the hair, and select areas of contrast that we don't want it to bleed into. And then use our refine edge and kind of tweak this mask and get it a little bit further to what we're looking for. Now, edge detection is very helpful. It helps seeing the edges, and there's a lot of fringe in this because of the hair, but I don't want to run it on everything. So I'm just doing the background, and then areas that you want to keep sharp, I'm just going to mask out. So like the eyes, the lips, parts of the nose, eyebrows, like things that you want sharp, you want to go ahead and keep those things sharp, because the facial features are probably the most important part of working on something like this. And then using the dodge and the burn, I'm going to create like a little bit of a core shadow here just to help separate out the light a little bit. Blend that in. And then make a quick mask. And there's a lot of like red bounce light in this face, so I'm going to make a quick mask or a quick selection and select the areas that I want to change, and then go ahead and use the levels on it and kind of even it out a little bit, so it's not quite so red, it's not quite so harsh. Soften it up a little bit. Use the sponge tool, do a little bit of desaturating. And some of the light on this is kind of harsh, so I'm going to reduce it a little bit and soften it up so it's not quite as crazy. Soften up more skin around the eyes. And then add a little bit of saturation in because it's a little gray in this area. Just kind of pushing and pulling the values to get them to blend in and look a little more natural. So zooming out, evaluate what we got. Going to paint out a little bit more. And then grab a brush. I'm going to define the lips a little bit. They kind of got lost because of the lighting conditions. So I'm just going to go in, paint in a little bit of color. I sample the color of the other bottom part of the lip. Soften the edges a little bit. The eraser with just a little bit of a soft erase. And blur the edge a little bit. And then define it a little bit more. And then playing with some layer modes just to see the kind of result that I could get. And I'm just going to use it as normal and use the opacity and blend it in just to add that definition. Go into my layer style and mess with my layer blends because I want to keep some of the information from underneath, like some of the the skin. And then here just paint in a little bit of highlights based off of the light direction and to help define the lips a little bit more. Again, doing some color correction, working with the gamma, just trying to get a nice dynamic range of values. And here, using the color mixer to sort of reduce some of the yellow. It's a very yellow image, and just not really happy with that. So I'm going to push it into the red and pinks a little bit, and then work on the eyes, define them a little bit, add a little bit more reflection, even though it's kind of fake, and blend it in. Gives it a little more soul, a little more character. And then using selective color, I'm going to push this into the reds a little bit more. And then take a look at my levels, my values here. And again, adjusting the darks. Going to my exposure. Giving that a try just to see if I can get anything working with this. Just to push it a little bit more. And desaturate it. That image was pretty saturated when it first was brought in. So I'm desaturating a little bit. And it's starting to get like a softer feel now. And a nice balance. Go ahead and crop this. Get it a little more focused around our subject without too much extra background. And, using the rule of thirds, kind of keeping our product in place. And then I'm going to mask out, or do a quick mask of this background, because of the mask that I made it and blurred it. I'm just going to fix this by doing another blur on top of it. And correct it there. So we're getting pretty close with this, but now I'm going to create a gradient. And again, just do a little bit of a vignette just to add a little bit of value to the edges. And do a multiply on top of that and blend it in. And there we go, we're looking pretty good. Some last minute alterations, some color tweaks, group it into a layer, and then compare our old, our new, our old and new. And there we go.